Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to New England Outdoor Life Podcast. We are starting our series of fishing stuff that we've been promised, getting close to the spring fisheries of all the Great Lakes in Vermont and New England. And our guest on tonight happens to be a captain that I met going on probably 15 years ago, Andy. Been a while since I started to fish out in Oswego. But we've got Captain Andy Bliss of Chase and Tail Adventures out of Oswego, New York with us. Welcome aboard, Andy.
Thanks for having me today, Matt.
Absolutely.
Have fun talking with you tonight.
Yeah, no, as I told you, and we talked on the phone, we really love to have folks from many different aspects, not just in New England, but knowing that we have a ton of outdoorsmen, women that come from all over New England that travel out to your region to fish the awesome fishery. It's world class, as anybody knows about Lake Ontario and the Great Lakes in general. So you're one that has a year-round business there and have a ton of intel on what that fishery means. So why don't you start off and tell us about Lake Ontario and the fishery itself and what you target?
I mean, as most of your listeners probably know, Lake Ontario is one of the Great Lakes. It's actually the smallest Great Lake, but we're a very deep lake, so we have a lot of cold water. So we have a great cold water fishery with Chinook salmon, coho salmon, brown trout, steelhead, lake trout, and Atlantic salmon. You know, people have talked about how great it is in different places. You go catch the large fish we have, and there's only a few other places. And realistically, I mean, there's really nowhere in the world you can do what we do. I mean, you can go to the West Coast, catch steelhead salmon, you can go to places, down South Arkansas for the big giant browns, but they don't have steelhead, or, New Zealand for big browns. So we do have a fishery that's very unique to the species we have and the size we catch. We do provide a year-round fishery here in Lake Ontario and upstate New York. From this time of year, right now, March, mid-March, late March, going on right through till about early October, we can fish the lake trolling. We start off in the spring right close to shore. Small boat anglers is a perfect time to get out. You can get out in a tiny little, 12-footer and catch big trout right on the shoreline. As the season progresses, we go a little deeper. Obviously, in the summer, we're fishing deep, downriggers, lead cores, coppers, dipsy divers, targeting those big salmon when they go deep. And then when the salmon get their spawning urge in late September, early October, they head up the rivers. Then you can target them in the river. Same thing. You can go in with just about any tackle you have and catch a large, trophy-sized 15 to 30-pound king salmon from shore. It doesn't take a lot of, money or tackle to do it. Anyone can do it. And then as the salmon run tapers off, the trout starts showing up. We get our browns, we get our steelhead, and that'll continue right on through all the way till, like I said, March and April and the beginning of May. So like I said, it's a year-round fishery, and we've been lucky. The last few winters have been somewhat mild, and you could really take advantage of it year-round and never feel like it was, the conditions were too bad to get out and go fishing.
Sure. Obviously, as well as anybody what that fishery means to the economy out there. And, just looking at from the Niagara Bar to you guys all the way up to Henderson Harbor, every little village, if it's on the lakefront, it has to do about the fishery and understanding what that economy means, both from the marinas, the tackle shops, everything. Without the Chinook salmon, you wouldn't have the economy you guys have got out there and the importance of that. And when do you think the Chinook's fishery really took off for Lake Ontario?
I mean, they started, believe it or not, they actually put Chinooks in the lake back in the late 1800s. At that time, we didn't have the hatchery programs to sustain the fishery, so it just didn't take off. But I think it was 67, 68 is when they really started to get the fishery going. 70s, it just kind of people started to realize what was available, but really in that early 80s, it really took off. I mean, the guys that were fishing here in the 80s told me stories how going into Wright's Landing in Oswego, the people would be backed up, let's say about almost a mile from the ramp getting ready to launch. You would actually get your boat ready on First Street, probably half a mile from the launch, because by the time you got there, you had to put your boat and go because it was that busy. I mean, we don't see crowds like that anymore, but that's pretty impressive.
It really is. Yeah. You talk with the guys, you said that fished back in the 80s and didn't have the numbers, but it seemed to be the size back when people were hearing about fish in the top 30s and the low 40s. And, I think with any fishery, a lot of it is whether it's a numbers fishery versus, size, and obviously based on what the bait profile of that is. We battle the same thing here in Lake Champlain. We're a numbers fishery when it comes to lake trout, when we're hard pressed to find a laker over 15 pounds, but we've got thousands in that 10 to 12 pound range, So you want your customers to have fun, and obviously with the amount of charter boats that run from the East End all the way to the Niagara Bar, people have got to be able to have a fun time, have good numbers, but yet that mixed bag too of targeting steelhead, browns in the spring. It's truly a world-class fishery, and for anybody that hasn't tried it, getting the chance to go out there, once you're bitten by that first king that makes a scream and run, and you just hold on for dear life, there's nothing else on the East Coast that can touch it outside of saltwater fish, for sure.
The kings are a great fish, but some of the other species I think are a little overlooked. The king, as the name, the king, and are a great fishery, but we have a lot of other species that attract people and people love.
For
People
sure.
love steelhead and brown trout. That's one I think is almost under promoted. Think about it. Anywhere in the Northeast, you've caught a brown trout. There's brown trout everywhere.
Sure.
Like why do people go to Iowa, Illinois to shoot trophy whitetails? Because it's what you have in your backyard, but now you're going for the trophies. That's one thing Lake Ontario provides that attracts a lot of people.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I tell everybody it's pretty hard to beat the spring fishery out there. It's, unless you're battling the weather, most days it's a great numbers game. And that chance of especially getting a spring king on light tackle, just the smorgasbord, you could grab a walleye, you could grab a smallmouth, steelhead. You just never know. And it's pretty hard to duplicate. There's no question about it. How long have you been guiding on your own now, Andy?
Let's see, what's this, 25? Well, we're getting old. I think this fall I'll be starting my 24th season. I'm just wrapping up my 23rd season as a guide. Got my license back when I was still in college. So yeah.
Now, did you grow up in the Lakes region, or where are you originally from?
No, actually, I grew up about 20 miles north of New York City, right on the Hudson River.
Gotcha.
I fished stripers and bluefish as a kid. My grandfather brought me up here in June of '86. Got out of school early. Got caught, but I got to catch my first Lake Ontario fish, and like they say, the bug bit me. I'd go back to school and dream about being up here every day. When it was time to look for a college, I wanted to go to RIT because I just knew of Rochester and being, wanted to be by the lake. And then my grandfather took me to see the Oswego campus, and it was no brainer. I signed up early admissions, got accepted, and I enrolled in there in my freshman year of college in '98, and I never left.
Yep. Well, you've built an incredible business, and obviously, you not only first mate with Cold Steel, but running your vessel both on the Oswego River and the Salmon River. Tell the listeners a little bit about the two different winter fisheries as far as the rivers and how you work your business.
So, I live closer to Oswego. Oswego it's a larger river, as in volume and size, width wise. But the fishing, and it's actually a bigger river altogether. It's 5,100 square mile drainage, so it's a big river. The thing that separates or differentiates it from the Salmon River is we have a dam that is impassable by fish, and we have about 3/4 of a mile of fishable water. So when those fish come up, they do get kind of condensed, and it's not very conducive to shore anglers when the water's up because you just can't wade. So with a boat, it gives us access to spots that not a lot of people can get to. So we can have a big number of days on the Oswego. The Salmon River is beautiful, but now you're in the downtown of Oswego. That's the downside of the Oswego River. The Salmon River, on the other hand, you got 13 miles of floatable water, 16 miles of fishable water, and it's all pretty rural, rustic. There's parts where you kind of go through a little bit of the township, but most of the river, you're in nature. It's a beautiful, scenic river, especially in the wintertime, covered in snow, and that's the difference in the two fisheries.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think back to how long ago I did a fall king trip with you on a drift boat. And as you said, the numbers game that you guys have got there, and I've caught them myself in the harbor during staging time. And, but the difference, the conditions you've got there, and you have in the past years transitioned to a jet drive boat, correct? As far as the Oswego River, how has that made a difference for you, and as far as access and use for your clients?
Well, unfortunately, back in 2009, the bridge to the Lido Island, which is an island on the river that had a launch so we could launch our boats at, and it gave access to anyone with a drift boat. You could launch a boat and drift your way down river. Um, when that bridge got shut down, there was no way to launch anymore. So we had to devise a way to get up river. We had boats custom built already with outboards on them, but it could only get you up to a certain level of flow. Well, about 2019 or 2018, a guy showed up with a jet boat, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. And it worked. It did what everything I was doing at the time, but faster. And I
Sure.
felt like a little safer, had more power. So I wound up buying one in 2019. I haven't looked back. And it provides
Yeah,
a bigger platform to fish at, so it's way more comfortable than the old drift boats.
sure, exactly. Now, do you have a stealth craft for both the rivers, or do you have an aluminum that you run on the Oswego, or what are you running?
I'm actually right now sitting on an aluminum motor well drift boat, Stealthcraft fiberglass drift boat for the Salmon River, Stealthcraft sled, and a 19-foot Lund I picked up last spring. So I got a boat for everything right about now. And then, like
You
you said,
sound like me.
in the
Yeah,
summer I work on a 36-foot sports fishing with Captain Tom Burke, Cold Steel. We've worked together. This will be our 27th season working together this year.
27
So
years. Yep. Well, it's an amazing fishery, and obviously you guys are a household name when it comes to Lake Ontario. If you had to pick a favorite time of year, what would you choose if you were going to go out as a recreational fisherman?
Matt, I get asked all the time, what's your favorite? You
It's
know,
me too.
I I think the thing that I love the most about our fishery is the diversity of our fishery because every season has a different species to fish for, different techniques. You're not pigeonholed doing one thing all the time. Whether it's springtime trolling for browns with, you know, these light rods, 9-foot rods with 10-pound tests, 10, 12 rods spread out. Or then come September and those kings are right close to bottom and they're staging and we're running 4 divers and heavy gear and they're just mean and angry. But then a couple weeks later, I'm up in my sled or drift boat in the Oswego River running a float with a chunk of skein and catching kings on 12-pound tests.
Sure,
Most places they say 12, you'd laugh. We run 20, 25. We light line fish them. It's awesome. And then a couple weeks later, I'm running 11-foot rods with 6-pound tests catching 8 to 10 pound steelhead that jump and dance and they're silver. They're just so chromy in these sunglasses. Look at them. So what's my favorite? It's, like I said, it's just, I can't put my finger on it. I love them all. And that's why you never get bored because there's always something new around the corner.
yeah, yeah. And I've been asked the same question, and I put the steelhead right on top. For me here and back in Vermont, pretty hard to beat the fight of a smallmouth bass, but for what we've got around here. But as you said, watching a chromer dance across the water on light tackle, it's hands down my favorite. So, but you're right. I mean, I've had some stellar days in Lake Ontario where it's glass and you're watching the sunset and you got a 20-pound king out on a copper that's ripping forever, and there's no other place. It is, to me, holds a huge part to my heart, and being 4 hours away, I don't get out there nearly enough. But Lady O is a special place, and she can be angry. You guys know that on the East End better than anybody. Certainly battle the wind when it comes to wind direction. But a little bit about the migratory patterns of the different fish. A lot of people talk about the bar and how the kings really the spring bite takes off out there. What causes that phenomenon?
Well, you got the western end of Lake Ontario is a little shallower. From what I understand, it's a sandier bottom, so it warms up a little bit. Those kings seem to migrate out there. Bait comes in first. Their bait's usually in earlier than ours. So those kings, think about it, they can smell a part per million. They find the bait. So when that bait comes in, those alewives come in to spawn, and the western end, those kings are on them. And then, you hear about that great bar fish in May into early June. Then the kings seem to disperse. Well, they disperse when the bait disperses. A
Sure,
large majority of them actually go straight across the other side to the Canadian side to the spit, they call it. There's a big bar over there. I fished over there the second week of June one year. I mean, we went, I think, 3 miles, and it was 20-foot thick of bait for 3 miles straight.
isn't that
So
crazy?
those fish can smell. So when those bait leave on the U.S. side, they go to the Canadian side. And then the other half just start, the U.S. fish, I think, start migrating their way down the lake. You hear places, Oak Orchard starts getting good in June and July. Sodus is a credible place to fish in July. Oswego is great from late June right through September. The last few years, we have a lot of wild fish. So we had a great fishery right here in Oswego last year, catching kings from March through October in Oswego. It was incredible. Like I said,
Sure,
I bought that Lund the second week of April. My first trip, I caught a king, fishing for browns.
Sure.
That same day, guys were often 60 feet targeting kings and catching limits of kings in April. It was
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
2024 will go down as one of the greatest salmon years on Lake Ontario.
Yeah, I utter the same thing, and I didn't spend nearly the time out there that you do. And my spring fishery every day, I only got blown off once, and grins a mile wide. It is just truly a special place. Here on Champlain, with our my Atlantic salmon program, we don't have the tribs that have natural reproduction. It's another topic in its own for us here, but we have just recently, in the last 2 years, started experimenting with net pen projects. So obviously, we've adopted what you guys out there know so much about what it has done for that fishery. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the net pen project?
So after the winters of 12, 13, 14, 15, real cold winters, we had a little downturn with our bait population. So the state decided to cut back on our stocking. Since then, we've increased a little by little. But what they found is kings do better when the bigger any fish stock is going to do better the bigger they are. So we can hold them in the hatchery for a certain amount of time. And now we put them in a pen. Once they're in the pen, we can feed them for another anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on water temp. They have to get out when the water gets a certain temp. So we can grow those fish almost double their size in that pen in a few weeks just by feeding them. So now when they go into the open water, they're a little bit bigger, a little healthier. The other thing is the hope is that they imprint. So we stock the Niagara River, Oak Orchard, Genesee River, Oswego, and Dexter, the Black River. The Black
Yep.
River Basin is where they're put in. Salmon River, we don't need to stock. They have their own homing. Those fish are direct stock. They've never had to pen because they're obviously in the hatchery water. They come back there. But they found by doing, instead of separating less fish in more locations, grouping them together, we have a way better survival rate.
Sure. Yeah. For us here, being a smaller square mileage in the spring stock, and we battle cormorants horribly. And they were gobbling up our Atlantics, and they tried a couple of different things that seemed to be working. Excuse me. We too are stocking them more in the tributaries, not leaving them in a little shallow bay that cormorants can gobble them up. They're putting stocking trucks out on our ferry system that crosses from New York to Vermont and dumping those fish at slow pace, so they're scattering them out. But the mouth of the Saranac has the net pens now, and it seems to be doing real well. So we're hoping that's going to turn into something.
Yeah, we've used a stocking barge ourselves here in New York for years, doing our brown trout especially. With our pens, when we're ready to release them, we'll actually tow them from the marina out past the mouth of the Oswego River, try to get them out in the lake a little bit so when they disperse, they can kind of get away. And the other thing, we got the National Wildlife Service comes and actually harasses them, scares them, from the site a couple of days before we let them go. So hopefully they're not roosting and nesting there, and they're kind of scared away a little bit. So the fish have a little better chance to survive.
Sure. I know in years past, you guys have had a big end of season captain's party over on the other side of the river. Tell me a little bit about what that goal is and helping people that help raise money for the volunteers with the Net Pen Project.
So, it actually started back in 1999. Local captain Jim Hardigan actually had a tragic accident and died, and he had a couple of young daughters. So a couple of the fellow captains that were good friends with him started an end of year party, and we tried to raise money for his daughters. And obviously they grew up. 25 years later, they weren't little girls anymore. So we
Sure.
kind of changed that. And obviously we raffle and stuff, but all the money always gone to support a cause. Obviously tragically 6.5 years ago, we lost Captain Kevin Davis of Oswego. It was a legend around here.
Sure was.
You talk to anybody, he'll tell you Kevin was the best. He was a great person, an incredible fisherman, but a better person. So, we raised money for his family when he passed. And, we always try to do things that can help support our, our fishery, whatever it takes, raise money, do raffles, whatever it takes. So, yeah, the Penn project, Tom Allen Spear, took over for that project, and he ran it for about 20 years now, and he's done an incredible job. He actually stepped down this year. The pen's now going to be taken over by Stacy Frugal of the New York Sea Grant, and SUNY Oswego. They're going to be doing a parentage study on king salmon. The professor's leading that, scientist, I guess he would be. And he's going to get his students to come down and help, and they're going to, kind of check the fish out and study them, and hopefully we can produce some, really good returning kings out of this crop. So
Sure. No, that's fantastic news. I know over the years you've been very fortunate to work with a lot of companies out there that obviously our names across the Great Lakes and your relationship with it's TA and Atomic, with Gibbs, Potsky. What do you want to tell the listeners about where you got with that and what it's done for your business?
It's people here you got say sponsored by a company, and there's a lot of people out there who are just happy to get free stuff. I mean, I try to represent companies that I believe in. I met Putsky back in 2012, 2013. I fished with him with Kevin one day when they were filming, and just hit it off with the manager Kristen. He's wanted me to support their product. I mean, they've supported me. They've anything I've asked for, they've helped me out. They give me product. I mean, but their product is the best. I mean, they came out with fire gel a few years ago. Actually, the first samples were used in my boat that fall of 20 and or 19 when I first bought the boat, and it was phenomenal. I was blown away. People ask me all the time, "Do you really believe in it?" The one thing I tell everyone when they ask me, anything I represent, I believe in.
Sure.
Because in life you have one thing, you have your word. If you ain't got your word, you ain't got nothing. So
Amen.
if I ever promote anything, it's because something I believe in it. Whether it's Putsky baits, their gels, their dyes, Gibbs, fishing, they took over, bought out Michigan Stinger spoons. Michigan Stinger, we got hooked up with them back in 2003, I think it was 2002, 2003. Yeah, Rob Belmore is the owner. Terry Weber was the owner. Terry Weber unfortunately passed. His stepson Rob and his mother Jean kept the company going. Well, they got offered and they sold over to Gibbs. So I came on board with Gibbs, which is a great company. A lot of products we use already, whether it's bait heads here for kings, flashers. The slashers we run, they're all owned by that. So it's a conglomerate of different companies. They make a great product. P-line, Beckman nets. Love Beckman. I won't run another net. A lot of guys say that whatever, that's my net. I just love
Sure.
it. But really, I like working with companies, and it's nice to be able to give them feedback on what the angler wants. Like gel. We wanted a flavor. They made us a new flavor. Stinger. We want a color. They'll paint us custom colors.
There you go.
That's one thing. You have a relationship when you need something, there's something missing. They'll work with you and, kind of hopefully fill that gap in for you.
Sure. No, it's pretty critical, and obviously knowing what works for you, hands down. You've got the time on the water, and the fish certainly can tell you the difference. And what one package works in Oswego may not work out on the west end or the bar, and the same thing for me here in Champlain. That the lure packages that I'm running here may not exactly work out there, or vice versa. So there's hands down, being having that notoriety and what you need and what produces for your clients is pretty key. But you have been very fortunate to be involved with some of the best tournament teams there on Lake Ontario. And one of the other things that I thought of when getting a chance to discuss with you is tell us a lot about the tournament world. So many people get caught up in saltwater tournaments when it comes to trolling, and of course the bass world around the country. But I really think Lake Ontario and the Great Lakes tournament scene is something unique. So tell us a little bit about that.
So, here on Lake Ontario, back in '99, we had two events. You had the West End event, Niagara County Pro-Am, and the Oswego Pro-Am. And that was kind of it. So guys would travel to go do two, because there's two a year. You went to the West, came to these. Well, as the years went on, Sodas added an event in 2004. Oak Orchard came on board in 2006, for the Pro-Am series, which the Pro-Ams were fun. I enjoyed the format. It's a 2-day format. You can weigh in 12 fish, but it's your first legal 12 fish. There's no culling. So it's a catch and kill tournament, but you can't release. You have to keep them if they're of legal size that they determine in the tournament. It could be 18 and a half inches for a king. It's 20 and a half, a half inch bigger than a legal Atlantic steelhead. So that's cool. Over 2 days, you get your points weight. Like, to me, that really, you can separate yourself, because you could have a great day one, you could fall on your face day two, or vice versa. Then came around smaller events. It seems like every weekend there's an event now, whether it's they started with like challenges. They're a 1 day, 5-6 fish events. So it's your biggest 6 fish for the day. Tom Allen started a big event here in Oswego called the Atomic Invitational. Last year was his 13th year. It's 6 kings, and that's it. Salmon only, just big kings. He loves king fishing, and that's one that when he started, it was one of the biggest events on the lake. Drew upwards of 60 boats. They had an event like that on the West End. They started a little bit, but he saw that and he jumped on board. Yeah, had a similar event. So I mean, you can test your hand against other anglers per se. I mean, still it's you versus the fish, but it's the competition of it. There's a little money involved. I mean, it's one of those things you can fish a lot. And are you going to get rich? No, you're going to
No.
have fun. And it's just the trophies. I mean, I just got to find a new place for a lot of them, unfortunately. Not to be conceited, but I moved a lot of them around. So we're redecorating our living room. I had to move a lot of stuff the last few days. So I did a lot of dusting. Let's just say that.
You're supposed to put them all up behind yourself there so we can see. We'd be looking at the trophy case behind.
I almost sat there and I was like, that'd be a little too I was trying not to be that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
But I'm not, I mean, without being, it's not a conceit. I mean, I'm very proud of our accomplishments. I work very hard at what I do. I love what I do. I love my team. We have a lot of fun. I mean, that's, when it all comes down to it, if you're going to win and not have fun, why'd you do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I enjoy hanging out with my guys. We have a good time. I mean, people look at us a lot of times, think we have too good of a time, and then we come to the dock and it's like, whoa, maybe we should have a little more of a time. But,
sure.
Well, we're a bunch of fun-loving guys, that's all.
Exactly. I've talked to a lot of people about the tournaments out there, and one of the things that I have told people over the years, just how I got into it, and again, going back 15 years ago, and the first time that I came as an observer, I had ran into Tom Allen, and he says, well, Werner Stenger's bringing his boat over. We're going to go out and do some pre-fishing. Come on along with us. And he told me about getting involved with the observer part of it, and I was hooked. I'm like, all right, I want to do this tournament thing. So, we do it again for fun. It's just to get a crew together to go out and see how we can place against everybody. And as well as anyone else, you can have 5 days of rock solid, stable weather. The fishing's on fire, and on Friday night, a front comes through and it flips the lake, and things just change. And all of a sudden, the program you had going is gone, or probably going to be a piece of what's still going to work. And that's the plus of the Pro-Am, is that guessing game. It's not everybody just targeting salmon. Obviously, the weight of the box is going to be best with salmon. But you've got that brown trout program that you say, when you look at the 12 fish box, it's going to get you points. Okay, who's going to run in and try and grab browns to make their numbers? And it's a gamble. And I think that's the fun part of it, is just trying to outthink what the other teams are going to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy involved. Like you said, we're going to go try to catch our 12 browns quick. I mean, our first win ever was in 2001. We caught kings. It was tough. It was a blow. So same thing. Day one was half a day, so we caught some fish. Day two, we did better. Well, 2004, we actually won with, what did Bob have? He had 3. I think he had 5 more fish than us over 2 days, and we beat him because he had a lot of small browns. He had his 12 browns, but
sure,
we had all big salmon. So we made up for the number of fish on weight.
Sure.
So yeah, like you said, there's a lot of strategy involved, and it's fun. Like I said, some of my best friendships have been formed from fishing together. I mean, I've had Tom Allen's fish with us, Casey Prisco's fish with us, Rick Droshin, Rob, Ripka, the owner of Fat Nancy's. I mean, we've had so many different people fish on our team over the years, and then they go out and fish on their own. Like Casey's gone out on his own. He does a crepe shop. Rick is just a transmission mechanic. He took an event. He wound up winning an event by himself. Him and his dad in an 18-footer. When they came in, that boat looked like it got sunk and brought back to the surface. I mean, it was a pile. It looked like a scrapyard in that boat. But they won. You know what I mean? So that's the other thing. Anyone can have that day where you go win it. So to have those memories, I mean, to me, I have the picture of Ricky and his dad on the wall. Makes me feel as good as anything I've done, because I mean, I worked with them and helped them out that day. You know what I mean? It was like, to see them do it and the smiles on their faces, a father and son, was just really, really cool thing to experience.
Yeah, no, I could tell you one of the years that I observed before we had a team, I got on board with Stryker, and it was an Oswego event. It was an atomic event, and it was one of those seasons where the Kings had come for a while, they left, they come, you know how it goes. And shotgun start, and everybody's pointing one direction, and all of a sudden Eric turned a hard crank towards the east. And I said, So I'm just wide along, and we rode and we rode and we rode, and he gave it a shot that there had been some good fishing up in front of the dunes, and and we lost that 6 fish right at the end that would have made probably a top 5 box. They were doing fantastic, but again, no different than any other tournament. You've got that timeline, and where do you roll the dice how far you're going to run and be back in time for weigh-in? And we squeaked it. It was a run off the docks to get in line with our cooler. So it was fun. It's just like, I saw a little bit different side of the game there. And, a lot of guys now are weighing that choice of vessels. Do you have a light vessel that's fast that can make a run, but you're taking a chance with good old Lady O and what she's going to throw at you out there, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing the tournament scene has seemed to change. A lot of guys have gone to that, almost have a second boat just for tournament fishing,
Sure. Yep.
We've just stuck by our old trusty 36-footer, and because when she gets rough, we'll go fishing anything,
Sure.
I don't want to be on a 31-foot speedboat when it's 4 to 5 footers out there.
Yeah, it's an understatement. Yep. I've ridden it out, and just about anything I ever want to fish out there. And there's hands down a wider beam and some weight will make things a little bit more comfortable that you're not taking your life in your hands. But where do you see the fishery going out there? Any ideas and predictions and trends you're seeing?
So like I said, last year we came off a banner year. So I feel like almost anything this year is going to be a letdown from there. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, you know what I mean? You can't go over the peak of the mountain and go make a new peak.
Sure.
We've seen, but 17, 18, 19, we had 3 years in a row, a couple of years in a row, we had great fishing. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I saw yesterday posted, Matt French and Bruce Dingline out of the Genesee River on a shakedown. They got their first king yesterday. So that's a great sign, seeing as it's March 25th or something. I mean, that's impressive. So maybe we'll see some good fishing. Like I said, do I think it's going to be as good as last year? No, but last year, honestly, it's, I know this sounds really bad, but last year was too good.
Yeah.
Guys come up and, it's hard to release kings when you're catching them 80 to 120 feet down. You know what I mean? They come up there at warm water, they're shocked. So guys are keeping them. Well, when guys are coming up for a 6-hour trip and within 2 hours you have a limit of kings, it's like, what do? We can't really let them go. And it's like, they do want their fish. So it is nice to be out, we like catching fish, and it's always nice to have a quick day. But guys come up here, they want to have a good time in the water, they want to get away from home, they want to relax, hang out with their buddies. So that's where it's like, it's that catch-22. Do you want to pace it and catch less, or be done in a couple hours and catch a lot?
Sure.
There's no perfect, but so hopefully, like I said, last year was a little too good.
And I think in the transverse, we've all had those days that you struggle for those 6 bites, and you're hoping for the best just to put it all together. And it wasn't just not too awful long ago that I had a block of fall trips out there and planned on doing staging stuff. And I remember talking to you, and you said, dude, they're already up here. It's a ghost town. And it's either fishing in the harbor there or taking your chance out in front of the lighthouse on the big salmon. And it blew every day I was there. And I'm like, doggone it. So you're at the hand of Mother Nature. What are you going to do? So.
Yeah. That's the big part of our business. Mother Nature's in control. I've got up, like today, I fished the river. Everything was perfect. We get that snow that we got about, I don't know if it stood up. We probably got 4 to 6 inches of snow today. I thought it was already gone. It was so warm. But like, I could wake up tomorrow and that river be unfishable. I mean, you know what I mean? That's, like I've had days where I get to the marina, it's supposed to be light and variable, and you get there and there's 6, 8 footers. Unfortunately in our business, that's tough. Guys drive up there like, why'd you let us come? It's like, it's Mother Nature. She has a mind of her own. We have no control what she does. We just try to, get you out there, be safe, and make sure you have a good time.
Yeah, no, amen to that. It's, again, 15 years for me now. And I've had my days where, you look at, I had 3 weeks booked solid, and that first week and a half, I got 3 trips in, and people say the same thing. The last thing I want to do is call them ahead of time and say, don't come out. And you might be able to have a break that we'll get out a little bit later on the trip, or if I've got a vacancy in the afternoon, we'll hold off. And, you can see that place laid out in an hour and a half and go right to fishable. So it can definitely change out there. But, I tell anybody that's listening, if you haven't had a chance to come out and try Lake Ontario, there's nothing like it. And there was a time, I won't lie, that I was weighing very hard. When I left the fire department, retired, I said, am I going to move everything lock, stock, and barrel and go out there? Because I love the place that much. And for me, home and family kept me closer to Champlain and running my business here. But I will always do some trips out there. And I'm very fortunate that I've got such a great group of return clients that have come out there with me since I started. I don't even push it anymore. They just get their dates. I go out and do them, and then I work everything else back here now. So it is absolutely a phenomenal fishery. And, we got to have a balance between, everything from cormorant control to managing the lake when it comes to the biomass of the fish are out there. But without the fishermen, it's that economy doesn't survive. So tell anybody to give a charter captain a call or give you a call. Anybody that's looking for a trip, how do they find you, Andy?
This day and age, I feel like Facebook's the biggest thing. Chase and Tail Adventures is my business name. We're on Facebook, Instagram. They're Chase and Tail ADV. My website's www.chaseandtailadventures.com. They can call me, email me, text me, private message me. I'm here. I'm pretty much open from eyes open to eyes closed at night. So if you call and I'm awake, I'm answering the phone. I'll text you back. And it's one thing I do try to do is get a hold of everybody, or at least answer everybody. I've always heard people say, "Oh, I tried reaching this person." I at least, even though I know them, but at least try to give people that much enough respect that I at least contact and tell them I'm not available. And try to help them find somebody else if I'm not. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, there's a lot of the guys out here do a great job that I have no problem referring people to. So they get a hold of me. I'll try to at least set them up with somebody that can take care of them if I can.
Yep, bingo. I would say the exact same thing. There's plenty of times that I may not be able to get to somebody right there, but then when I get off the boat, I call them and say, hey, this is what the calendar looks like, but these are the people I suggest. And there's no question that partnership is what helps everybody. And, not only getting the intel when you're out on the water, but taking care of people in the off season too. So it's definitely what it's all about. Well, we thank you very much for joining us. And as we said, that we're trying to keep topics fresh and not necessarily always New England-based businesses we talk to, but there's a lot of people that travel, and of course, with the World Wide Web, you get folks that could be listening in Australia to talk about Lake Ontario back here in the Northeast. But I'm sure I'm going to see you out there on the river in the next couple of weeks. I'm a week shy of bringing my boats out there and leaving them for the month of April. But wish you the best of luck, my man, and thanks so much for joining us.
Same to you. Thanks for having me. It was great to talk and shop with you for this evening.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thanks again for listening in with us at New England Outdoor Life, and stay tuned for more topics to come. Tight lines.